Let's get right into it. Number 7, Alexander the Great, the ultimate ancient influencer. Picture this. You're a 20-something Macedonian guy who's conquered most of the known world by age 30. You're basically unstoppable. Your armies worship you, and then you start thinking, you know what? I'm probably a god. That's exactly what happened with Alexander. He didn't just stumble into divine status by accident. This guy strategically marketed himself as the son of Zeus across his entire empire. When he rolled into Egypt in 332 BCE, he made a beeline for the Oracle of Amun at the Siwa Oasis. The oracle supposedly looked at him and said, "Hey there, son of Zeus Amun." Alexander was like, "Perfect, I'll take it." Suddenly, he's got divine legitimacy in Egypt, political clout in Persia, and his Greek followers are nodding along because Zeus was already in their family tree anyway. The brilliant part was how he adapted his god status for different cultures. In Egypt, he became the beloved of Amun and chosen of Ra. In Persia, he played into their tradition of semi-divine rulers. Each group saw him through their own religious lens, but they all agreed he was definitely more than human. Alexander's mother, Olympias, had been telling him since childhood that Zeus was his real dad, so when the oracle confirmed it, he probably thought, Mom was right all along. The guy genuinely started Eliaving his own divine marketing campaign. His generals watched him sacrifice to local gods, accept royal titles, and demand the kind of worship usually reserved for deities. Alexander turned deification into a political strategy that kept his massive, diverse empire from falling apart. Different cultures, same divine ruler. Pretty smart for someone who supposedly died from drinking too much at a party. If you're enjoying these ancient stories of humans becoming gods, hit that subscribe button because we're just getting started with these mind-blowing historical revelations. Number 6, Imhotep, the original overachiever who became a god by accident. This guy was the ultimate Renaissance man, except he lived in ancient Egypt around 2650 BCE. Imhotep started out as King Djoser's right-hand man. He was the royal architect, high priest, physician, mathematician, poet, and probably the guy who organized the palace parties. His name literally meant "he who comes in peace," which is pretty ironic considering he accidentally started one of the longest-running religious cults in human history. Imhotep designed the step pyramid at Saqqara, which was basically the world's first skyscraper made of stone. People were so impressed they started talking about this genius architect for generations. But here's where it gets weird. For over 1,000 years after his death, nobody really mentioned Imhotep. Then suddenly, around 525 BCE, people started claiming he was a god of medicine and healing. Stories began spreading that he could cure diseases and reveal medical secrets through dreams. Temples dedicated to Imhotep became like ancient hospitals where sick people would sleep overnight, hoping he'd appear in their dreams with medical advice. It was like having WebMD, but with divine intervention. By the time the Greeks and Romans showed up, Imhotep had been promoted to full god status. He joined the Memphis Triad alongside Ptah, the creator of the universe, and Sekhmet, the goddess of war. Not bad for a guy who started as a government employee. The Greeks even equated him with their own gods of medicine. 3,000 years after building one pyramid, Imhotep had somehow become the Egyptian god of wisdom, medicine, architecture, and probably good government administration. Comment your location below and let me know if you've ever heard of any of these ancient figures before they became gods. Number 5, Heracles, the strong man who punched his way to Mount Olympus. Everyone knows Hercules from Disney movies, but the original Greek Heracles was supposedly based on a real person who lived around 1264 BCE. Early Christian scholars were convinced this guy actually existed. They had dates, locations, and a whole timeline worked out. According to their research, Heracles was a king in Argos who ruled at the same time as Eurystheus in Mycenae. The story goes that Zeus, being Zeus, disguised himself as a mortal woman's husband and created a half-god baby with superhuman strength. Heracles grew up performing incredible feats that seemed impossible for regular humans. He wrestled lions, cleaned massive stables in a single day, and reportedly traveled to the underworld twice and came back alive. People started telling stories about his adventures, and each generation made them more spectacular. By the time these tales reached the Greeks centuries later, Heracles wasn't just a strong king anymore. He was a demigod who could literally wrestle death itself and win. The 12 labors attributed to Heracles might have started as exaggerated versions of actual military campaigns or construction projects. Maybe he really did clean out some important stables, but it probably took longer than one afternoon and didn't involve redirecting entire rivers. Ancient people loved a good success story, and Heracles provided the ultimate rags to riches narrative. A mortal man who worked so hard and achieved so much that the gods themselves invited him to live on Mount Olympus. It's like the ancient version of going from 0 followers to verified status, except instead of social media fame, you get actual immortality and a spot among the gods. If these stories are blowing your mind, make sure to share this video with someone who loves ancient history, because we're about to reveal the most shocking transformation of all. Number 4, the beer brewing goddesses who started as your neighborhood homebrew enthusiasts. Long before craft breweries became trendy, ancient women were the masters of making beer. In Mesopotamia, brewing was considered such important work that several goddesses were associated with it. But here's the thing, these beer goddesses probably started as real women who were just really, really good at their craft. Picture Ninkasi, the Sumerian goddess of beer. Her name literally means lady who fills the mouth, which sounds like someone people would definitely remember after trying her brew. The Sumerians even wrote hymns about her brewing process, complete with detailed recipes. These weren't mystical incantations, they were actual brewing instructions set to music so people could remember them. Some scholars think Ninkasi might have been based on a legendary brewer whose beer was so incredible that people assumed she had divine help. The same pattern shows up across cultures. In ancient Egypt, women brewers were so skilled that when Hathor, the goddess of joy and celebration, got associated with beer, it probably started with real women whose brewing abilities seemed supernatural to their communities. These weren't just random people making drinks in their backyard. These were master craftswomen who understood fermentation chemistry thousands of years before science had names for what they were doing. Ancient brewing required serious skill. You had to know exactly when to harvest grains, how to control fermentation temperatures, and which ingredients created the perfect flavor. When someone consistently produced beer that was better than everyone else's, their neighbors started wondering if they had secret divine knowledge. Before you knew it, stories were spreading about their magical brewing abilities. Within a few generations, these exceptional brewers had transformed from local celebrities into goddesses with temples and religious festivals dedicated to their craft. Number 3, the Viking kings who sailed into Valhalla. Norse mythology is packed with gods who probably started as legendary warriors and rulers. Take Odin, the Allfather himself. Some scholars think he might have been based on a particularly clever and ruthless king who lived around the 1st century CE. This theoretical, historical Odin would have been a master strategist, a skilled warrior, and probably the kind of leader who inspired both fear and loyalty. He might have been known for his intelligence-gathering network, his habit of wandering in disguise to learn about his enemies, and his ability to win battles through cunning rather than just brute force. Over centuries of storytelling, these impressive but human qualities got transformed into supernatural powers. His network of spies became magical ravens that could fly anywhere and report back. His strategic wisdom became divine omniscience. His battle victories became the power to decide who lives and dies in combat. The same process probably happened with Thor. Maybe there really was a red-bearded warrior prince whose hammer strikes in battle were so devastating that enemies thought he controlled thunder itself. His legendary strength and his weapon of choice got mythologized into divine powers over storms and lightning. Number 2, the Chinese emperors who became celestial bureaucrats. Chinese mythology is full of deified emperors who started as real historical rulers. The Yellow Emperor, Huangdi, is considered the ancestor of all Chinese people and a major deity in Taoism. But historical records suggest he was probably a tribal leader who lived around 2700 BCE and successfully united several warring clans. His real accomplishments in establishing early Chinese civilization were so impressive that later generations elevated him to divine status. According to legend, he invented medicine, the compass, and even the Chinese writing system. In reality, these innovations probably developed gradually over his reign and were later attributed to him personally. The same thing happened with Emperor Yao, who became a god of virtue and good governance. He was likely a real ruler known for his fairness and wisdom in leadership. Over time, his reputation for just rule got exaggerated into divine perfection. Chinese culture has always respected ancestor worship, so the leap from revered historical emperor to actual god wasn't that big of a stretch. If you think these transformations are incredible, share this video with a friend who needs to know that their favorite ancient gods might have just been really successful humans. Number 1, the prophet kings who conquered through divine authority. Throughout history, religious leaders have often claimed divine status to legitimize their political power. Many figures who became gods in various mythologies probably started as charismatic leaders who combined religious authority with military conquest. These prophet kings understood that claiming divine backing made their rule seem inevitable rather than just politically convenient. They would perform public rituals, make accurate predictions about natural events like eclipses, and time their military campaigns to coincide with favorable omens. To their followers, these leaders seemed to have supernatural knowledge and divine favor. After their deaths, their successors had every incentive to maintain the fiction of heir divinity. A dynasty founded by a god carries more legitimacy than one founded by just another successful warlord. So the stories grew, military victories became divine interventions, political wisdom became prophetic revelation, successful leadership became godlike perfection. What started as clever propaganda became genuine religious belief within a few generations. The human origins got forgotten, leaving behind only the divine mythology. These ancient gods that we've explored today show us something fascinating about human nature. We've always been impressed by exceptional people, and our tendency to exaggerate their accomplishments over time has accidentally created some of the world's most enduring religious traditions. The line between legendary human and actual deity is thinner than most people realize. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them,